Dear church, let's talk about faith on the job. Hello and welcome to the Dear Church podcast. I'm your host, Chris McCurley. Excited about my guest today. My good friend Chad Fuzzle is with us. Chad, thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. And as our viewing audience can tell, you have something to do with the police department. I dressed in uniform today. Tell us a little bit about your job with the Dixon Police Department.
So I do work at the Dixon Police Department. Been at the police department for almost 21 years. Wow. Be there 21 in August. Born and raised here in Dixon, and always wanted to come back and serve my community. Right now I'm the patrol captain, so I am over all of our patrol officers out in the streets, and I have some of the greatest men and women that you could ask for that work for me. And so it's just it's a lot, but it's a good job. It's a good job to have.
Yeah, I guess I should tell our audience that you're a member here at Walnut Street, where I preach, and married to Ashley.
That's correct.
And been married how long?
It'll be 20 years in October.
High school sweethearts?
Grade school sweethearts.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
okay.
I was 14 and she was 12 when we first started being boyfriend and girlfriend.
Wow.
And so she's kept me around for that long.
That's amazing.
We've been together going on 30 years. About 32 years, and I've been married almost 20 of those. So she's wonderful, and she keeps me in line, and she's just a great person.
Yeah, she is. I agree with that. Yeah. And baseball family. So I did some coaching last year at Dixon County. Your nephew Ben was one of our star players. Love Ben, great kid. Graduated this year, going on to play in Chattanooga. Mm-hmm. And then your other nephew is Drew Beam, who we're waiting to see where he's going to get drafted. Right. Pitches for Tennessee, and of course he had a great year, winning the national championship and all that. Talk a little bit about your family.
So yeah, we're a baseball family from Ashley's side of the family as well. Had my other nephew Cole. He plays with the Nashville Dollies, which is kind of a sandlot team that plays around Nashville. And Luke, my other nephew, he played for a while, played some JUCO ball, and so all of our family it's just baseball, and we watch so much baseball throughout the year, and everything from middle school ball up into SEC and World Series ball. Yeah, we just got back from Omaha, and it was a long time up there, about 13 days, but we had a great time, and we're still waiting to see where Drew will fall in the draft. So. Yeah, just hope he goes somewhere where they can develop him and absolutely going. And Ben's going to Chat State, and he's going to go down there and pitch and hopefully play some middle infield and hit the ball. And then we got Nate, my other younger nephew, and he's going to high school this year. So
wow, so you still got a lot of baseball.
Still got a lot of baseball, but it's fun. It's great.
Yeah,
it's great.
And I know that I love having you around here for many reasons. One of them is that I feel pretty secure on Sunday mornings with you and Kirk, and kind of watching over and making sure everything's fine. And, we have a balcony here, and you always sit in the balcony. And there's been a couple of times where I've been a little bit hesitant, kind of like what's going on. There's been some commotion or something like that, and you're always ready to jump into action. A few weeks ago we had a medical emergency, and you were ready to help in any way. And so I know you do a good job with others here, making sure that we're secure, and that's a good feeling, because as the preacher, you kind of feel like that if there is an active shooter situation or anything like that, you're going to be the target, or at least one of them. And so it's good to have you here for that as well.
I appreciate that. It's you never think it's going to happen in your neck of the woods or in your house, but it's not if it happens, it's when it happens. You got to be prepared for it. So would I be telling the truth if sometimes we pray that I don't keep my eyes open?
Yeah.
I mean, I do that. But, I feel it's kind of my duty, my job to make sure everybody's okay there. And, every scenario runs through your head, from the time you get into the building. Doesn't matter if you're going to a restaurant, coming to church, or going anywhere. The scenarios are always running through your head. And I guess that's part of our DNA, our makeup is officers. Those scenarios are always running through your head, and it may be, scenario A, or it may be scenario Z, that happens, or it may be something you never even thought of. And so it's, but you always got to be thinking. And I pray that it never happens here. But, we've had some folks come in that, just for whatever reason, just don't fit. I'm glad they're there. Yeah. Glad they're here coming in to worship. But just something in we call it our spidey sense that makes this hair on the back of your neck stand up that you've got to look at and then just make sure that the whole flock is okay.
Yeah, I don't think you can be too careful, and I don't think that you can say, well, that would never happen here, because I think a lot of churches have said that when it did happen. Yeah. What got you interested in law enforcement? Has that been something you've always wanted to do, or
Yeah, I've always had the mentality of trying to help people.
Yeah.
Whether it was, just being there for somebody or, just wanted to be, I guess, be in the middle of stuff.
Yeah.
And so when I was in about 6th grade, I took one of those little aptitude tests, like, hey, what are you going to be?
Yeah.
And none of mine said doctor or anything like that. It was police officer or janitor or something else. And I was like, well, I don't really want to be a janitor. So police officer, that just kind of stuck in my mind. And then later on that year, we took the DARE, Drug Abuse Resistance Education.
Yeah.
And this officer came in, and his name was Jeff Lewis. And he was my DARE officer. It just happened to be my neighbor. And he came in this uniform, and he just made an impression on me.
Yeah.
And he kind of was my mentor. I could always go to him. And I kind of decided right there, that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
And so I kind of molded my studies in college, sociology, and with a minor in criminal justice, and saw that, I could come back here and make a difference. I had applications ready to go to Metro and to Memphis and other large departments, but I didn't want to be just a number. I wanted to be someone who could hopefully make a difference.
And you're this community.
Yes. And, this community raised me, and I wanted to put something back in this community. So in 2002, I graduated from Tennessee Tech. And in 2003, I was hired at Dixon Police Department, and Jeff Lewis was our training captain at that point. And then he left to go to a different department inside the city and ran it for a number of years. And in 2017, he came back as our chief of police. Yeah. And he was our chief of police up until earlier this year, and where our new chief took over, Seth Lyles, and he's doing a great job.
Yeah.
And he and I kind of came up through the ranks together, slick sleeve officers together. And so we were in 2nd grade together. So, it's just, it's a family there. Our department is a wonderful family, dysfunctional at sometimes, just like any other family. But it's been really good. And, 21 years in, I feel as comfortable sitting at that department or being in my police car, being out here in this uniform as I do, sitting in my living room. I just feel comfortable there. And so, that was kind of my getting into law enforcement. Just people were put in place throughout my life that kind of guided me to that career path.
Yeah. Is it difficult growing up in a community, a small community? Dixon, for those who don't know, about 16,000 people in the city limits. County is about 55,000. Is it difficult growing up in a community like this and then having to maybe give a ticket to somebody that you went to school with, or maybe one of your teachers or something? I mean, there's hardly anybody in this town that you don't know.
Yeah.
Is that one of the pitfalls of the job, is having to address maybe even more severe situations with people that you know well?
It can be. As growing up and becoming someone out of the community, your character goes a long way.
Yeah.
And so if I have to give a citation or have to make an arrest on someone, hopefully they know that, this is business. It's not personal, and I've never made it personal.
Right.
It's just business. And so if I have to do that with someone that I've known, and I have, I've arrested classmates, I've arrested people that I think a lot of, and it's terrible, but it's business. And I don't look at it as anything personal. It's just, when it comes down to it, I've got a job to do, and your actions have made me have to do my job. And at that point, it's kind of on them. You know,
Yeah, that's true.
you got to sleep in it. So
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you take the burden off of you because they forced the decision.
right.
I have friends in law enforcement that have been jaded by the job, and they got into law enforcement because they said they wanted to make a difference. And I've been told, they said, we deal with the same 5% of the population all the time. You know, like you can't really make a difference because you're just dealing with repeat offenders all the time that don't want to get right and they don't want to do right. Have you found that to be true? And how do you keep a positive outlook and a positive attitude when you're constantly dealing with kind of I guess that's two questions, but how do you keep the positive attitude when you're dealing with the darker side of things?
It's tough. It really is tough. You do become jaded. You do become cynical. And as much as I would say that, no, it's not going to happen, it happens.
Yeah.
And you try to find the good in people, but it seems like so many times you're going to be let down.
Right.
I sincerely believe that everybody out there has a very good side to them. They just make irrational or rash decisions that put them in a situation. Sure. From, someone who is, has psychiatric issues to the drug dealer down the street. They inherently have a good side to them. They just make terrible decisions.
Right.
And I try to find that good in them, that little spark that maybe says, let's try a little bit further to get them the help that they need, rather than just go throwing them in the jail,
writing them off.
And I've done that before, and I encourage my officers to do that as well. To go that little extra mile if you can. Sometimes we, they spit in your face, and they kind of wash them out. But again, they've made that decision. But if you show a little bit of compassion, a little bit of care to someone, and go that extra mile with someone, then they can find that, hey, somebody does care. Because you may be the only person that's ever cared about them at all. They may not have a family group. They may not have anybody in the world that cares for them at all. And if you can get that little bit of, just ignite that little bit of fire in them and get them the help they need, that could change their whole life. Working with the recovery community here in town, have a tremendous amount of contacts. And, we've literally found people on the side of the road that were high, that were going through all this. And instead of taking them to the jail or something like that, I've called my contacts. The next thing you know, we have them on a plane going to a rehab center. And what a blessing. You can't really necessarily do that in a huge city, where here in town, you make those contacts. You have those people on speed dial in your telephone, and you can help those folks out. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's one thing I appreciate about you is you look at this as a ministry. One of the reasons I want to have you on today is to talk a little bit about how faith motivates you in your position. Talk a little bit about that and how you use this as a ministry, and how this is, what you believe that God has positioned you for, and how you use that as an opportunity.
Yeah. Definitely didn't put me in it for the money. So, but it was, starting out, it was just a job. It was a career. It was, fun thing to do. But as I got older and got reconnected with the church and found my faith, I realized that this is something that I can use on a daily basis to help folks out, either at the department or literally out there on the street. I have a big chair in my office, and it's a big, came out of a living room, and I call it my counseling chair. People can just pop in there and just kind of release. I close the door. They can just kind of say whatever they need to say, get it off their mind. We've gone through, with officers gone through, divorce or infidelity or something like that, and just been able to just get it off their mind. And having someone that can listen, that is, not going to judge, just having someone to talk to. And I think that makes a huge difference. To be able to have someone like that. And it's not, the the law enforcement world, emergency services, it's not easy to remain, that good Christian model, as you well know. It's kind of like being in the dugout or something like that. There's lots of, crazy jokes, if you will, and just everything that goes on. And we have a lot of cynical people that are jaded and just, have poor attitudes. But where the faith comes in, and I tell everybody that, our new folks that come in, you have to have some sort of release from this career, or it will eat you up.
Yeah.
And your faith needs to be the first thing. Your faith needs to be the first thing, because without that, this job's going to chew you up.
Right.
And then you have to have something, a hobby, some sort of release to go and just expel all of this hatred and things that you see, because there's things in my 21 years that I can't unsee, I can't unhear, I can't unsmell, and that sounds weird, but certain things will take you back to a certain spot in time, and you know exactly what that is.
Yeah.
And, but I tell my guys and girls, your faith has to come first, and if you don't have that, it's going to chew you up.
You got to have something to fall back on, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. And, to me, your faith, it's got to lead you, it's got to lead you, it's great to be able to have something to fall back on, but it has to keep you down that journey. There's 1% of corrupt police officers out there, right, that don't have a guided way. And if they had Christ first in their life and the integrity that you should have by following Christ, then all your judgments would be a lot better.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't have the corrupt people like you do that give us a bad name, And so I think that Christ needs to lead you in your direction in your career, just like anywhere else. And but it is nice to be able to kind of fall back on him as well.
Absolutely. How difficult is it to leave that at work when you come home to Ashley? How difficult? I'm sure it gets easier as you go along, but I know officers that really struggle. Like you said, there's things that linger, things that you've seen, you've heard, you smelled. How hard is it to leave it at work?
To me, it's not real. It's not real hard.
Yeah.
We went through a marriage seminar back a while back, and it talks about how guys have a nothing box. And I can go to my nothing box, in my head, and and I can be okay there. And so if I come home and something's bothering me, I can just kind of go to my nothing box, which doesn't really help around the house a whole lot. But very rarely do I bring something home that, just weighs on me. Now there have been times, obviously when, you lose an officer, lose a friend, that weighs on you and still weighs on you to this day. But just the day to day, it doesn't, me personally, it doesn't weigh on me as much. But there are some officers that take it home and they won't talk about it. They'll just compartmentalize it until it explodes. And
yeah.
That's not healthy at all. And that's when you get into, domestic violence at home with your spouse, or it gets too much and officers are committing suicide and, leaving the job. And that's scary because that can happen. And so we try to have an open door policy with our officers to, if you got something going on, let us know,
Don't wait till it's too late.
Don't wait till it's too late, And like I was kind of bragging on my chief earlier, Chief Seth Lyles, he has brought in a new chaplain, Matthew Hyatt.
Yeah.
And Matt hangs out at the police department, is there for our officers to be able to just go get in a room and decompress and talk about things, which is way healthy. But, to go back to answer your question, it can be hard to bring stuff home but, I've got a great situation where if I need to talk about something, Ashley's right there, and she'll let me talk until, I'm blue in the face.
Mm-hmm.
But rarely does that happen. I probably don't share enough, but there's some things that she doesn't need to know and that I don't want her to know.
Right.
And, I may start a conversation and she's like, I don't want to know that, which is perfectly fine.
Right.
But it can weigh on you. There's cases in particular where, I can just think about right now that it brings back literally sounds, smells, and just the sheer terror of, going through things. When you have to tell a mother that her son just died,
mm-hmm.
you'll never get that wailing out of your head. That, and that still weighs on you.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's just, it's kind of our career is protector, but it's also counselor, and it may be minister at some point. There's no telling how many times that I can think of that, I just ask the family, before I leave, can I pray with you?
Yeah.
And they look at you like, really? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it'll help or not, but it might help make me feel better. And I hope it will make you feel better.
Right.
And you develop a relationship with that family. And I thought so many years, when I was doing mission work out in the field, and I'm gonna leave law enforcement and go do that. Well, I got to thinking, my ministry's here.
This is your mission field.
This is a mission field. Just like going to, wherever in the world. I love going on those trips, and I hadn't been on one in a while, but I love it.
Yeah.
But I mean, you're in the field right now, and I can't leave that.
Yeah, I mean that's the fields are wide. I mean, there's plenty to do, right? And I got to imagine that it weighs on Ashley too. Wondering, what's going to happen to my husband today and all that. I'm sure you've had those conversations about, hey, I'll be fine. Don't worry about me. But that's got to be tough for a spouse as well.
She and I have a great relationship as far as that. And it makes me feel good because she doesn't necessarily, I mean, she worries about me, but she doesn't necessarily, every time I leave, oh my gosh, what's going to happen today?
Yeah.
And is that a coping mechanism? Maybe, but it makes me feel good that she's not worrying about it.
Yeah.
I probably worry more about her, driving to Franklin every day, and her on the road. But, does she worry about me? Absolutely. Whenever, I spent 15 years on the SWAT team.
Yeah.
And, there were some times where, I was like, well, this could be it.
Yeah.
But she never flinched, she'd give me a kiss goodbye and, kind of wish me luck and, that I come back home, and, so it's not an issue till it is an issue.
Yeah.
And it hasn't been an issue yet, and I pray that she doesn't have to experience that because, I've sat there with a couple wives of good friends of mine that have passed, and I don't wish that on anybody,
No, for sure. Has it been more difficult? Have you seen it or felt it in this day and age when law enforcement maybe is not looked upon in the same light as it used to be? Social media, has certainly made that worse. You have a short clip of some video out of context a lot of times, and the hatred turns towards police officers and cops, and I got to imagine that you felt that a little bit maybe, and that that there's, even in our small community, I wonder how much that has trickled down, because you have the defund police and all that kind of stuff, and you just see a lot more animus towards police officers today. And like you said a while ago, I mean, certainly there are bad cops, but they don't represent the whole. Mm-hmm. So have you had a difficult time overcoming that persona, or has that been something that's touched us much here in Dixon?
Not really. When as soon as it hits, there's going to be people that, of course, get on social media, keyboard warriors that, you're all a bunch of,
Yeah.
And, but for the most part, our community has stood behind us through thick and thin.
That's great.
We have, even when they had the small rally out here at the War Memorial Building, for Black Lives Matter, there were some folks that came together here in town. They invited us. They invited us to come, and it's not our community has really backed us, but they wouldn't unless we were trying to do the right thing. Now, do we mess up every once in a while? Yeah, I mean, we all do. You're going to.
Yeah.
But for the most part, our community has been behind us. There's not a day that goes by where one of my officers or one of our officers here, whether it's sheriff's office or highway patrol or the city of Dixon, we go to a restaurant and somebody doesn't come by and say thank you.
Yeah.
That means a lot.
Sure does.
It means a lot. And, every once in a while we'll go and we're waiting for our bill or something like that. And it's just been taken care of. We don't expect that, but like, wow, thank you. And just people coming by, especially during the holidays, people coming by and bringing little gifts or, bringing cookies and stuff like that. And, just thank you. We're so appreciative of that. Now you still get your ones that, every time you turn around, they want to stick a cell phone in your face and, try to catch you doing something and try to antagonize you. But, those are very few and far between.
Right.
Some of the departments around the country aren't that blessed, aren't that lucky. We're here in Dixon, Tennessee, where these, the folks here, they like us and hopefully respect us. And I think they do. But if you put a product out there that's subpar, then they're probably not going to, so you've got to be able to back up what you're trying to prove that, you're an upstanding law enforcement agency trying to do the right thing. And so our community has really taken to us and taken care of us.
It's got to make it easier when you have that kind of support.
It does. Our mayor, our city council, our city, all of our city folks, administrators, they are 100% behind us, and so they take good care of us.
Yeah.
And so we're a department of about 71 people, and we've got 16,000 to take care of.
Yeah,
and so that's a big chore.
Yeah, it is. What is the biggest issue right now?
Just drugs.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter if you're, 2,000 miles from here. It's drugs.
Mm-hmm.
Drugs are everywhere, and it's kind of like domestic violence. It knows no demographic. It knows no boundaries.
Yeah.
I tell people all the time, if you take a snapshot of just 100 people downtown, 3 or 4 of them are going to have some sort of narcotic on. It's going to happen.
It's just widespread.
It's just widespread, and there's not a single person that I know that doesn't have a story, doesn't have someone who's directly affected by illegal drugs. And, are you ever going to stop it? No.
Yeah.
I mean, just flat out, you're not going to. It's like kind of like, you're going to stop every speeder. No, you're not.
Yeah, no, you're not.
You're going to catch every fish in the pond. No, you're not. But it's drugs. And everybody knows someone who is dealing with that. And it's so widespread that, that's our biggest issue, because, trying to, get your money for dope, you're going to go steal something. You're going to go do, and so it just trickles down into bigger crimes. And so that's our number one.
That keeps you hopping.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Day goes by.
What's the best part of the job?
The people.
Yeah.
Whether good or bad, you meet somebody new every day, and you get to interact with the public. Now on the flip side of that, probably sometimes that can be the worst part of the job, but
right.
Just dealing with folks and trying to help their problems. And if you can help their problem and get them the result they need, just the satisfaction of that. It's kind of like a woodworker getting finished with a project, you get it, sanded down and everything's smooth and everything's fitting right, kind of, translates over to helping someone else out and getting their problem smoothed out for them.
Yeah. Very rewarding, I assume.
It can be, yes. I spent 10 years in investigations and, cracking a big case, that's very rewarding. And going to the family and saying, we found the guy who murdered your son, or we found your stolen bicycle, something, not that those are on the same wavelength by any stretch of imagination, but just finishing a task, being able to accomplish something through just grit and determination to find an answer.
Yeah. I can imagine that, there's highs and lows, but the highs are really high and the lows are probably really low.
They are. Absolutely.
But, I'm sure that it makes it all worth it when you have one of those moments like this.
Absolutely. I've had some really bright days and I've had some really, really dark days. But the bright days outnumber the dark days, tenfold.
Yeah.
But the men and women that I work with on a daily basis, they're my family.
Yeah.
I spend more time with them than I do, at home sometimes.
Yeah.
And, do we bicker and fuss and fight? Yeah. But we still love each other.
Yeah.
And we're going to be there for each other through thick and thin, and literally, we've done that for each other.
That's awesome.
You get an officer call for help on the radio and you come and run it.
Yeah. It's a family, it's a team, and
it is.
Yeah.
It is. And it's a great team to be on. And I'm proud to be able to be on that team.
Well, I'm thankful that you joined us today and told us a little bit about the work and talked about your faith. And, I want to tell our listeners and viewers that if you have a question about today's episode, you can email me at chris.mccurley@rippleoflight.com. If you have a specific question for Chad, we'll forward it on to him, and I'm sure he'd be willing to answer any questions that you might have. Chad, thanks again, man.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. And I appreciate everyone watching and listening. Until next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you. Sincerely, Chris.